about what to do with your career in the next 2 years. Listen up, we've got some tons and tons of great questions from the team here at Best Practice. We've polled everybody into the studio this morning. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people here in our tiny little studio in Best Practice HQ, and they're all going to ask some questions about their career. We've been talking about it this morning. We thought, hey, you know what, let's shoot a video and go through this. So even if you're not early on in your career, even if you're developing in your career, listen up. We've got some great advice. Who knows where these questions are going to go? We thought we'd do a bit of a free flow riff this morning for the Best Practice podcast. So welcome to the Best Practice audio experience, or the Kobe Summit audio experience, coming to you live. Where are we? We're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're on Google Cast, we're on SoundCloud, we are on iHeartRadio. So listen up. This is some career advice, something to think about, some gems of questions. Okay, so fire away, guys. What have we got?
Alright, so what is the best way for someone to narrow down career paths and career opportunities to find what suits them best?
Okay, so we're thinking about how do we narrow down our career path, how do we look for opportunities, how do we find opportunities. If I think back over my career, I get to a point where I don't even know how I got here. So I didn't necessarily, and I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I guess I looked at, when I felt like it was time for a change, I looked for opportunities. I basically doubled down on areas that I was like, you know what, I'm not comfortable here. I moved away from areas, and I can think about times in my career where I've moved away from, I don't like that. It doesn't sit well with me. It's like the organization I'm working for or the team I'm working in, I don't have a values alignment or an ethics alignment, and I can certainly think that there was a point in time I was getting increasingly frustrated. I'm a very productive, bring your A game person. You guys all work with me, you know how I work. I was working with people that were more interested in the weekend, getting away with doing nothing during the day, and that didn't sit well with me ethically, because I was like, right, I've got a job to do. I'm going to come in, I'm going to get it done, I'm going to deliver in abundance. I'm taking money from my employer. I want to make sure they're getting employment. And so when you're thinking about career path, I think there's a couple of questions you really want to ask yourself. There's a balance, and there's lots of people on social media talking at the moment about the balance between happiness and success. So I think you've got to ask yourself, what does success look like? Who do I want to be like? Or what's the life I want to live? What do I enjoy doing? And if you can be enjoying doing things and getting paid for it, then that's excellent. That's like the place that you want to go. So if you enjoy traveling, if you enjoy holidays, if you enjoy that sort of stuff, maybe do something like that for the first couple of years. I enjoy working with people. I enjoy working. I enjoy labouring on building sites. I enjoy carrying bricks. I enjoy being fit and healthy and putting in a hard day's work. But I also know you don't make a lot of money doing that. And I can honestly say that some people will write off the fact that, oh, hang on a minute, actually I'm going to go and be happy and I'm not going to make money. I can tell you, when you make lots of money, it's lots of fun. So I want you to be considering there's a sweet spot between being really happy and doing something that's going to save the planet, and then actually finding something that makes money. And don't just assume that making money is killing the planet. And particularly when I talk about your generations, or it's killing society, because there's tons of people out there doing great things that make people happy, help people. Like look at Spanx turned 19 yesterday as a ladies underwear organisation. And I forget the lady's name, Sally, I think it's the lady that started that organisation. She is empowering women with, and obviously found an opportunity where she wanted to help people. And so I think from that perspective, she was helping people on the planet. So I think that I observe people jumping too quickly into, we want to save animals or the whales or some public environmental cause, instead of actually thinking about, hang on a minute, there's a ton of people on the planet that are unhappy, or they're not as happy as they could be. Maybe my cause could be helping people and do meaningful work. I was chatting to my sister a couple of months ago, and she's like, I just want to feel like I'm doing meaningful work. So my advice would be, if the minute that you're not feeling comfortable, can I toughen up a little bit? Like, am I being too sensitive? Is probably the first question. But if you're not a sensitive person and you have toughened up and it's still uncomfortable, start looking for something else that you enjoy a little bit more. And the last piece of advice, so look for something you enjoy a little bit more as you're thinking about change. And the last piece of advice I'd give you, which is what I've talked to you guys about this morning already, is think about what you're finding easy and what you're finding hard. And there's a piece around, we've been talking a lot on our blog, on the Insights website, the Insights page of our website, the how-to articles. If you go to bestpracticecertification.com.au, click the Insights tab, read the how-to articles. We've been talking about appreciative inquiry, which is encouraging organisations to focus on team members' strengths and then fill gaps. So don't try to develop people's weaknesses. Actually hire people with the strength that covers the weakness. So where you guys are in your careers right now, think about what you're good at, and you will find that easy, and you will get more momentum. And sometimes we go, oh, I'm going to go do something really hard. I'm not saying don't do something challenging, but do something challenging in a space where you feel comfortable and it's easy, if I'm making sense. And that will probably give you some more momentum in terms of growing your career. And that's probably where I've made mistakes, because I'm like, I just want to get out of here. And I went in a particular direction and I started a company. And that was a dumb idea. I shouldn't have started a company. So if you're thinking about working for yourself or working for multiple people, don't do that until after you turn 30. That's my piece of advice. You will be more successful. It will be easier because you've learnt more lessons. I made the mistake of starting this company, initially starting it when I was about 25, and then having a second crack at starting it when I was 28. And when I was 30, I was fucking swamped. I didn't know what I was doing. You're dealing with imposter syndrome. Your customers are challenging you. You're only 30. You don't know what you're doing. And that's the reality. You may think you're really smart, but you get really smart when you turn 40. And you've got a heaps more likely chance of success at running a business starting it after you turn 40. How many questions did I ask in one hit? Most of them. Okay, what's the next one? We've got the whole team live here for this podcast and these videos right here. We've got the whole team, the whole best practice team, not the whole business, but we've got 8 people in the studio this morning asking questions. So let's go with it. What do we got next?
In building your careers, what role does networking and connecting play, and what is the best advice to do so?
Okay, so when we're thinking about building our career, I'll say 3 things, 3 statements. It's not what you might have heard this before. It's not what you know, it's who you know. That's an incorrect statement. So never listen to anyone who says it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's not what you know. It's not who you know. It's who knows you. You can't do business with someone. You can't work for someone. You can't meet with someone. You can't talk to someone if they don't know you. So my first piece of advice is absolutely networking is really, really important. And it's getting to know people around you, and more importantly, getting people to know you. So rule number 1 with networking is people love talking about themselves. I talk a lot here. You guys will know that. Everybody's smiling right now because I do. You know, we were thinking about changing the podcast this morning to still talking. So that is correct. I love talking about myself. I love talking generally. It's one of my strengths. I got it from my mum, the gift of the gab. But sorry, mum. But what I want you to think about is that with networking, it is sometimes really hard to talk about yourself. So get people talking about themselves, and then they will like, oh, I really liked that person. They'll get to know you. They'll think they know you because they've been doing all the talking. So getting out as much as you can, making as much noise as you can, and individually when you're growing your career, promote as much as possible. So if you are somebody who is thinking about, actually, I want to grow my career, get on social media. Don't hide behind it. Get in front of it and get on top of it. Because the first thing I do as an employer when I look at anyone looking for a job here at Best Practice is I go straight to Instagram, I go straight to Facebook. Luke's going to teach me how to go straight to TikTok, straight to LinkedIn. So absolutely, fundamentally, make sure if you are wanting to grow in your career, make sure you're on LinkedIn at least once a week. Reading the news feed, looking at what people are doing, make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date. If you haven't got years and years of experience and lots of jobs, make sure your interests are up to date. Make sure you're following and liking posts from people who are doing things that you want to do. Absolutely. So rule number 1, make sure LinkedIn is 100% up to date. You've got the skills in there, your colleagues are there, you're connecting with as many people as possible. Right now, you guys can go out and connect with people. Like connect with leaders of businesses or leaders of brands that you like, and lean into those relationships with those people. And get out and get to know people. So in a networking environment, ask them, what are they up to? What's their story? What's their mission? What are they passionate about? What are the challenges that they've got in the next 3 months? Ask them, what do they want to be celebrating? 12 months from now, what's the biggest thing that you want to solve? What's the biggest goal you've got for yourself in your career? And that'll get people talking. Lots of networking. It's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. What else we got?
How do you personally stay motivated to work hard for and reach career goals?
How do I personally stay motivated? I couldn't answer that question until recently. I recently read a book, The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. Well, it's in the last 12 months. I've lent into a fair bit of his work. And Grant Cardone basically says, when you've got really, really big, massive, exciting goals, then you will stay motivated. And I can honestly say, I can think about a time 5 years ago when I was renovating a house. I bought my dream home. I renovated it myself because I couldn't afford to pay a ton of people to actually do it all for me. And I got really excited. So I was down there at 4 o'clock in the morning working on the house. I was finishing at midnight. I was getting like 3 hours sleep. I literally went hammer and tongs for like 12 weeks, getting this house to look absolutely amazing. And I can say that I was really, really motivated. I think that it's important to make sure that you're doing exercise. Lots of people got different opinions. I'll tell you what works. What works is doing exercise in the morning. There are days when I don't do exercise in the morning, and there are days when I do exercise in the morning. And I can tell you that this morning I did 90 minutes of hot yoga, and I'm motivated. So I think considering what you need to really think about what you put in your mouth. And the simple thing is when you have a barbecue and you cook lamb on a barbecue or beef on a barbecue and you eat it and you let the barbecue go cold, there will be white fat on the barbecue. Like, it sounds pretty gross, right? Now that is basically the temperature of the fats, the saturated fats coming out of the meat, basically cooling on the grill. Now that does the same thing inside your body. So it is really important to be thinking about the ingredients that you use to build the building blocks of your skin, your bones, but more importantly, your brain. And so the one question I've got for you is, do you know which food to eat to be motivated and which food to eat to be tired and which food to eat to be able to think fast? And, cutting a long story short, I'm not a specialist in this area, but I know that avocado, as an example, is something that helps you think faster. Fish oil is something that helps you think faster. So fats and oils that are liquid at room temperature, because we're all at room temperature right now. Yes, we're a little bit all individually a little bit warmer than room temperature, but the fat on the barbecue is solid at room temperature, and so you're not going to be able to actually access it inside your body. So thinking about the smart fats is really important, thinking about the right vegetables, and think about the cartoon Popeye. I was just thinking about Popeye yesterday, right? So somebody was telling a really interesting story like 50 years ago when Popeye as a cartoon was famous, eating spinach. So it's really important to be thinking about the nutrients. So how do I stay motivated? I try to eat right, and I know when I don't eat right and I drink too much, I'm not motivated. Too many beers on Saturday at one of my best friends' birthday parties, I wasn't motivated on Sunday. I was tired. I had red meat for dinner, which I don't usually eat red meat because I try to focus on a plant-based diet. I ate red meat for dinner, went out for dinner on Saturday night, didn't feel motivated on Sunday. Go and do 90 minutes of yoga this morning, eat a plant-based diet, eat properly. Right now, I'm motivated. So have a think about those sorts of things. Sleep is obviously really important, probably be the last thing. Get more hours of sleep before midnight than after. So if you're trying to work out where the balance is, at least get half of your sleep before midnight. So if it's going to be 6 hours or 7 hours, try and get more than half of your night's sleep. And it's hard for everybody. If you go to bed at 9 o'clock, you got 3 hours before midnight. It's tough. But 9 o'clock's the benchmark. Into bed at 9 o'clock. That's how you stay motivated. Simple stuff. It's not rocket science.
Cool. What are the biggest challenges that are most commonly faced when starting your own business?
Okay, we got asked the question this morning about how to start your own business. The first thing that I'm going to get you to think about is customers. Who is going to give you the first bit of money, basically? And that's the thing that we all forget about is who's got your money right now? Your customer has your money. And it goes into your pocket, then out of your pocket and out to the people that help you, your suppliers, if you like. So as an individual person, start thinking about yourself as a business and think about which customer is going to pay me first. And what am I going to give them in exchange? And when I give them something, how's their life going to be better? And probably the biggest thing that we fail to think about when we're thinking about starting a business is how will what I do make their life better? And because when you make someone's life better and they see a huge amount of value, when value exceeds price, cash flows. When price exceeds value, cash is blocked. So focus on what you're doing to make the person that you choose or seek to serve life better, even if it's your employer. How do you make their life better? Then stack in the value. So you want to be focusing on value. Maybe you want to do some market research. If there's already competitors in the space, that's a good thing. Don't try to, when you're starting a business, don't try to enter a space where there is no one. And that's the biggest mistake. People are looking for like the golden idea that no one's done before. It happens to me all the time. I'm thinking, right, I might do this. This is a great idea. I'm going to go into that space. Think about, has someone done this before? Yes, they have. Who was the most successful? Who's the best? Copy them. There's a great book, we were talking about it this morning in my office, Steal Like an Artist. And you really want to be the best in a flooded market initially when you're learning. So don't try and, I'm going to be a startup, this has never been done before, this is amazing. That's the work of universities. It's not the work in the commercial world, and universities don't make money. They need funding from external sources. So think about being the best in a flooded market, do your market research, and really think about how do you make the person that's going to give you money, how do you make their life better? Does that help?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Excellent.
What are the most important skills that you feel young people need to develop for their careers?
If I look at you guys, I think that if we're talking about the most important skills, and I just talk about best practice, I think the skill that the most desirable skill for me is the ability to figure shit out. And I think that a lot of people think they need to come in and know everything. I don't expect that. I expect that you can be, I like the skills of criticism. So you've got to be able to actually, say for example, let's put some context. I give you a set of instructions that are fairly limited because I'm not a micromanager, and you guys are like, what the fuck do I do with that? I'm like, okay, so because I'm employing you guys to sit there to figure something out, because if you don't sit and figure it out, I've got to sit and figure it out, but I don't have time to figure it out. And so I expect that you might spend 25 to 30% of your time actually just trying to research and figure something out. That's what I'm paying you guys to do. Figure it out, critique it, and I know people bag university, I know they bag colleges, particularly that's happening in the US a lot right now. But what university teaches you as a fundamental skill is the ability to be able to learn very quickly under tense situations and constrained timeframes, because that's what happens in the workplace. It's not a particular area. Yes, you get exposed to particular subject matter, but you do learn those critical skills. I watched Alexi here, who's behind the camera, go through and study really, really hard under some really intense timeframes and deadlines, but I watched him grow as a researcher, if that makes sense. And so I want you guys to, so I think the most important skill is the skill to be able to research and figure things out really quickly. The critical skills, like critical, analytics, if you like. And what is, am I using the right words?
Yeah.
Critical analysis, so that you can do a Google search. You can see that the first thing in a Google search is going to be ads. So you scroll past the ads, and then you scroll into the organic results, and then you start challenging those organic results. You might actually find your answers on page 2 or 3 of Google. If you're really, really challenging, the best people at the content are not the first result. The best people at paying for a placement are in the ads. The best people at SEO are in the first search results. But the best people at actually doing the work might be on page 2 of Google. So I want you to understand that actually my answer might be on page 2 of Google, not page 1. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So be critical, learn the ability to figure stuff out, and learn the ability to learn quickly, and that comes with reading a lot. And I would highly recommend you guys at your point in your career, my time is really tight, like it's flat out 24/7. You guys should not be complaining to me that you don't have 1 hour to read a book every day. You should be reading 1 hour, and I'm sorry to say you should, I shouldn't use the word should. You guys have got no responsibilities because you're not running a company. You don't need to find a couple $100,000 for payroll every second week. You literally have time to go out with your friends and hang out and enjoy life, and time to study. And at your point in your career, you should be reading more than your CEO. You should be doing, I'm doing an hour every day, you guys should be doing 2 hours every day. Challenge yourself. Like if you go through a week and you don't do an hour's worth of reading, you should feel guilty. So get in and do the reading. Like get on our social media posts, look at the books we're reading, ask the person that you look up to, ask them what you should be reading and read. Like it's $30, like go buy the books. Half of them are free online anyway. Yep.
In a digital world of free information, what role does formal education such as university play against informal education, so books and online courses?
Yeah, look, I think we've already sort of touched on this. The question is really, where does university play a role in the internet is giving us free information? I was at a high school, looking at a high school for my 8-year-old son the other day, and we were in the library, and the same question came up. There's a product that you can buy online called World Book Online, and it's an encyclopedia. And their differentiator is our information is not free. You've got to buy it, you've got to subscribe to it, but it's fact-checked. Facebook announced in the last week about the fact that they're bringing out their news tab. So you're going to see another tab on the Facebook profile, which is curated news. And you've got a whole bunch of news agencies, I think 151 news agencies from around the world. And the news on Facebook is going to be curated by journalists. So where do I see formal education sitting? I think it's very important. I think it's very important to be going into a formal tertiary education system, even if you don't pass, just go in and fail, but go in and learn how to learn. Pass or fail or distinctions or marks or grades in the tertiary environment are irrelevant. Mark Zuckerberg went to Harvard, didn't finish. Bill Gates went to Harvard, didn't finish. But they went and they learnt to learn and they got to observe humanity and observe culture. So I don't think you should be writing off and saying, I'm not going to go, it's too hard. Just turn up. And a lot of people are saying, no, it's too hard, I'm going to stop going. Like Ellie's pushing her way through to the end of, she's almost there. And I think it is really important. You've just finished. Shay's just finished, for example. So I see it as being very important. As an employer, I value a tertiary education over someone who doesn't have it. Like if I'm looking at two candidates, I'll choose the person with a tertiary education. I have a tertiary education. I did 5 years of full-time study after high school, failed everything in high school, went to do my tertiary study, didn't get a question wrong. So, you're going to be in different learning environments. So please don't listen to people who have not got a tertiary education tell you don't need it. If you've got the opportunity to engage in tertiary education, take the opportunity. And some people don't get the opportunity, but please don't listen to people, criticize people for what they're saying, and think about it. And the observation I'll make is in particular brands, and I'll just use car racing in Australia as an example. You've got the Ford community and the Holden community, or the Ford and the GM community for those that are listening from outside of Australia. We've got GM in Australia, and we've got car races. And fundamentally, the cars are very, very, very similar, but the community makes out that they're very, very different. But you've really got to look at the people who have chosen to support a particular brand. So the people that have chosen to support no tertiary education will continue to make noise about don't do tertiary education. They don't value it, they've never tried it. So make your own decision and make your own commitment, but when we choose the right area, we will value it. And I tell you as an employer, it's about value, right? It's exactly the same. Whether we're selling a product or service or yourselves, value, when value exceeds price, cash flows. So I'm going to say that having tertiary education will never work against you. It's more value for a prospective employer. Like, show me the value that you're going to give me by not having it. Like, where else am I going to get my value? Like, I'm taking a risk. Someone who doesn't have the tertiary education, I'm like, well, show me how you got the experience. Oh, I've worked at this job, this job, this job. I'm going to well, what if they were shit companies? They could be shit companies. Like, what'd you learn? Don't know what you learned. All you're showing me on your CV is you spent time in a seat at a desk at a company. You didn't actually go into a stressful environment and work for free at the university. You went to university for free. Oh, in fact, actually, you spent 50 grand or 60 grand or 100 grand or 200 grand on your degree. So not only did you not get paid to go there, but you paid to go there and you stuck it out, and you can show me that you can work under pressure. So I highly value it. Good on you all for doing it.
What or who do you take inspiration from when you need to complete creative tasks?
I take my creative inspiration from two people right now, and it changes. One person will be my dad, who is an amazing artist. He's an architect. He does some amazing drawings. So I'll take some creative inspiration from him. From a video perspective, when we're producing videos and we're trying to attempt to make our stuff entertaining and sexy and look good and all that sort of stuff here at Best Practice, is Casey Neistat. If you haven't checked him out, check him out on YouTube. We'll put a link to his channel in the description of our YouTube video. We'll try and put something in the description of the podcast. And then from a copywriting perspective, I take some of my creative inspiration from Alexi. So, we sync in terms of how he writes, how I write. And I can honestly say that having him write our content has really helped my copywriting skills. So I'll be really thinking about, how that works. But probably the last group of people that I take my inspiration from a creativity perspective is you guys and our customers. Like, I look out and I listen, and then I seek to serve. And so I'm going to be creatively trying to write so it's engaging and it's going to be meaningful and influential.
What books do you recommend to someone starting out in their career?
What books do I recommend for someone starting out in their career? If I think about all of the books that I've read, and I think about nominating one book that's probably been the most impactful, and there's probably two. I'll give you 3 or 4 books. The first book I would say is Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. And why do I say that? Because he did 30 years worth of research into how the brain works, and he talked about defining the fast and slow thinking systems. And I think that starts to give you some insight into how the humans around you behave and act, and why they react and why they respond. That'd be book number 1. Book number 2 would be Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss set out to write himself like his ultimate manual to manage himself, and wrote the gold nuggets down from all the interviews he's done on the Tim Ferriss podcast. So Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss would be book number 2. Everybody needs to know how to sell and influence. And whether you're pitching for a job, to actually get a job, to get some experience and work for somebody, then that's one place that you want to start. You need to learn to sell. You need to learn to influence, and you need to learn how to communicate value. So value exceeds price and cash flows. I've talked about that a couple of times. So I would recommend starting to look at some selling books. One that I've read recently, which I really liked, which was simple, not so much for me, but to be able to use here with our team, and you guys have all been through it, which is The Way of the Wolf by Jordan Belfort. I think you can watch the movie, you can accept or reject what went on in the movie, but that's not the real story. The straight line syntax about opening and closing a sale, and whether you should or shouldn't sell, and the ethics of selling. If you have got a serious solution to a problem that someone has, like you're an employee or you're someone selling a product or service, if you have a real solution to a real problem, it's unethical of you not to influence someone to implement that solution. Now, whether that's a customer buying your service or you pitching a boss to actually employ you, if you have a genuine solution to a problem, then it's unethical of you to not deploy your talents. And so you really want to learn how to do that, and finding books on how you can communicate more effectively and sell more effectively, I think are great. So quick summary, Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss, The Way of the Wolf by Jordan Belfort, and then something around mindfulness I think is important, so that you can really be happy to really, if you find yourself reacting, and get control of your emotions, whether you're male or female, in the first part of your career. Learn about emotions.
Do you have a go-to strategy to overcome challenges?
Muscle. Just hyperactivity. So if you've got a challenge, the way you solve challenges is by doing a shitload of work. So you really want to be thinking about, like Grant Cardone talks about this in the 10X rule, don't underestimate the amount of effort it takes to actually achieve your goals. And a lot of people do, and then they give up because they've gone, I'm going to do this. It's a really great idea, but they don't just tough it out. Whether it's climbing a mountain, whether it's starting a business, whether it's going on a holiday, the amazing things that happen in life come with effort, and the body has this, the human body has this really crazy way of saying, actually, I get a great sense of pride for the amount of effort I put in. So if you want to feel good, you got to put the effort in. So it's almost like get comfortable being uncomfortable. So I think when I'm really trying to overcome a challenge, if it's a really, really big challenge, my go-to strategy is to go for a walk. So go for 2 walks and 2 sleeps before I react. So it's like trying to stop myself reacting. If you're really, really struggling in life, a lot can be solved in a 1.5 hour walk. And everybody can do that. Everyone's got getaway sticks. Go use your getaway sticks, get away, go for a walk. And then if you can do 2 walks, don't try to solve the problem or act on the issue, or whatever that might be, a family issue or a friend issue or a work issue or a life issue. Costs you nothing to go for a walk. Go for a walk for an hour and a half. Get on with your day. Go for another walk for another hour and a half, even 2 in one day. But I have a strategy: 2 walks, 2 sleeps before I deal with lawyers or employment issues or whatever that might be.
Cool. Thinking back to when you were in your 20s, if you could give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Thinking back to my 20s, one piece of advice would be pull your head in and work for someone a bit longer, because I would have learnt more, instead of actually having a massive ego and going, I'm smarter than everybody else, I'm smarter than my boss, I'm smarter than everyone around me, I'm the smartest person in the room. I'm not, and I'm not the smartest person in this room. I don't know everything, but I thought I did, and you guys think you do, and it takes till you turn 40 to go, actually, hang on a minute, maybe that's not right. I would have liked to have I certainly could have made a lot more money, and I could have been a lot better at what I do by having more people to copy.
Cool. This one's a bit of a broad one. Where do you think is the best place to start researching investments, whether that be books, videos, or websites?
Researching investments. There's a great, I can't think of the author, maybe one of you guys can Google it quickly, is Trading Elliott Waves for Profits. There's a book, Trading Elliott Waves for Profits. I would recommend that you all read that book so that you understand the stock market and you understand pricing and you understand the emotional drivers behind price and the stock market. Any sort of investment that is where you would put money, it's going to throw off dividends or it's going to increase in value. You want to understand why markets go backwards and you want to understand why markets go forwards. And if you read about Elliott wave theory, you'll understand that it's largely driven by emotion. So someone feels more confident, so they buy shares, or they feel less confident, so they sell shares. Then you want to understand the concept of greed, and you want to understand the concept of fear. People walk away from markets when they're scared. Did you find it?
There's a few out there.
Trading Elliott Waves for Profits. That's it there. It is Stephen Poser, P-O-S-E-R, Applying Elliott Wave Theory Profitably. Stephen Poser will post a link to that. That will teach you all about the graphs. So if you go to Google Shares or Google Trends, you'll see graphs and really understanding graphs. And so if you could do that, so where to go to get the information is to learn about how the graphs and the patterns on graphs, and you'll start to see the matrix of and when I say the matrix, like maybe even go watch the movie The Matrix, but then you'll start to see how price performs, because investments are all about price. So the first simplest form of an investment is to buy something low and sell it high. So you want to learn, okay, how that's going to happen. So whether it's cryptocurrency, whether it's shares, whether it's a house, whether it's a car. I've bought cars that have doubled in value. Like most cars go backwards. I bought one particular car in the last couple of years. I paid $78,000 for it and I sold it for $150 because I saw the graph, basically. So a lot of the projects, a lot of things that you guys see me doing, that not everybody that follows best practice sees. I'm looking at those prices, whether it's houses, whether it's boats, whether it's cars. I'm looking for things. I'm looking for opportunities where the investment's low, and then it's going to go up.
How do you identify the risks that will arise when starting a new venture, and how do you minimize them?
The first way to identify risks that are going to arise when you start a new venture is to go find all of the other mistakes. The first question you ask yourself is, someone's tried this before and they've failed. How'd they fail? So what did they do? How'd they fail? What went wrong? So I want you to really think about that. When the business that was tried before, the new venture, it's been done before. It's been done, something very similar has been done before and it's failed. That person that started that business, the person that's doing what they're doing has failed. I want you to figure out what they did to fail, and I want you to avoid making that mistake. Any questions online?
None at the moment.
No? Okay, cool.
So our last one, what mistakes have you made and how have you learned from them?
Probably some of the biggest mistakes I've made are really not doing my due diligence when I'm hiring people and letting people join the team. That's probably been the fundamental mistake, and that plays out for you guys in be really careful and really critical of the people you're taking advice from. Don't take an investment advice from someone unless they can show you a bank account that has had financial success from investments. Don't take marriage advice from someone or relationship advice from someone who has been burnt, hurt, divorced. Like the person that's been married for 50 years, ask them how you stayed married for 50 years. The person that's running a successful company, ask them the advice. Don't go and ask, and so be careful who you take your advice from, I think is probably, that's answering the question, isn't it? Okay, cool. So that was advice for our team, something different for us here at Best Practice. But helping these guys, giving them something back. So if you've got questions for us here at Best Practice, comment below. If I missed something or if I hope this was helpful, if it was helpful, comment yes. If it wasn't helpful, comment no. And if you're seeing this on YouTube, we've recorded everything. It's going to be up on the Best Practice audio experience or the Kobe Summit audio experience on Spotify. Where else are we? Apple iTunes, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio. Go check us out on the podcast. If you like listening to the podcast, let me know. You'll see this on our YouTube channel. You'll also see it out on the podcast. My handle on LinkedIn at Kobe Simmet. If you're not following me on LinkedIn, jump across onto LinkedIn, hit the follow button, and you're going to get some of this content in written format as well. And if you haven't seen it already, check out the 2020 Vision Business Summit that we're promoting. That's the 26th and 27th of February 2020, where we're going to be helping you with a live experience talking about all of this stuff in a huge amount of depth. Some great speakers. So go and check out bestpractice.biz/2020 vision. You're going to see everything that's being announced. We're announcing more speakers today. So you'll probably see those speakers when you go and check out that landing page. Grab your tickets quickly because the prices, as we announce speakers, are going up further and further. And as we sell more tickets, we're adding in more value. Every single dollar from the tickets sold for that particular event going back into making it an amazing event. So don't miss out. I'll see you there.